Namaste, everyone. Happy Absolute Independence Day coming up. It's right upon us, just a couple of days from now. Hey Shoshone, you guys are looking pretty deep there. About 5 rows deep. That's pretty cool. See ya in like 16 hours. So, yeah, like right after this class is done, I'm just gonna pack all this stuff up and then we're bringing it to Shoshone. It's pretty amazing. Literally within an hour. So tonight we get to study. I think it's a topic that comes up occasionally, but I wouldn't say we dive into it super deep every time. But tonight we will. In fact, the word dive is actually in the sutra tonight, which is pretty cool. But the topic that comes up tonight is this idea of going beyond the physical posture of our practice. Not just yoga postures as physical postures, but everything that you want to call the practice, like going beyond it in order to experience where it's taking us. The actual experience of Shiva. As Swami Muktananda told Babaji in a private satsang once, what is beyond the void? He said to him, your mic seems a little quiet. All right. Thanks for the heads up. I'll work on that in just a sec. So I'll leave it at that. So we're going to go beyond the void tonight, beyond the physical, and I guarantee it, or your money back. So let's start first with some movement. I'm going to pan over to Abaya, and we'll sort of help get ourselves grounded in our seats, grounded in the present.
Hi everybody. You can take a moment to shift your seat around. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Whoa, this is what Dharma is doing. You must be able to hear me really well. So take a moment just to shift your seat around and start to feel your physical body. To go beyond it, first we just bring more consciousness to the way we inhabit it all of the time. And as you gently start to shift the weight, let the legs and the pelvis be heavy as if they're helping you stay grounded to the earth. And see if you can witness the beating of your own heart. Maybe you can feel the rhythm emanating from the chest. And when you try to feel the heartbeat, you don't change it in any way, you just observe it. And see if you can bring that same quality of observation to your breath flow. No changes or alterations, just observing as naturally as observing the heart beating. As you observe the breath, you might start to notice where the breath expands into the edges of your skin, front of the body, the back of the body, the sides of the body. And try to continue noticing and feeling as you make ever so gentle circles with the spine. And so you're taking the edges of your skin slightly to the left, slightly forward, slightly to the right and back. And move so very slowly, just noticing how the breath interacts with the physical body. You can go the opposite direction. And then let the circles get so small that an outside observer wouldn't even know that you were moving. And notice how much your awareness has grown with the sensations in the body, the fullness of the breath. And just allow yourself to be perfectly still, connected to the body, yet beyond it, connected to the breath, yet even beyond that. And from this place of expanded awareness and deep inner connection, we will start to shift into our sutra.
We can explore the Sanskrit together. Āsanasthaḥ, sukhaṁ, hrade, nimajjati. Āsanasthaḥ, sukhaṁ, hrade, nimajjati. You can play with that yourself as a mantra. It's actually pretty fun. The first word especially is really unique. Āsanasthaḥ. Āsanasthaḥ, sukhaṁ, hrade, nimajjati. I'm assuming audio is a little bit better. Thanks. Seated in that real posture, the yogi effortlessly dives in the ocean of nectar. Seated in that real posture, the yogi effortlessly dives in the ocean of nectar. As I said before, this sutra is an exploration of what's beyond the postures of our practice, whether that's the seated posture of meditation, an actual, like a yoga posture, the posture of a breathing exercise, the posture of a mantra. These are all positions we assume, we take upon us in order to guide our awareness inwards. But the sutra is sort of asking that we begin to explore this idea of working with those postures effortlessly, and by doing so, allowing ourselves to actually sink into our true nature. Normally, when we use a tool, we're using the tool externally to sort of create a reality that doesn't exist yet. We're sort of trying to shape reality with our tools, right? Well, according to yoga, it's this very interesting conundrum. We are Shiva already. The house is already built. And so the way that we use our tools doesn't quite exactly mirror how we use our tools in our everyday life. On the one hand, there's effort in our practice, there's work. On the other hand, our practice is a recognition practice, a realizing practice. We are already Shiva in that our work is to realize it. And so in a sense, the house is already built that we're working on building. And so this sutra brings all of that up for us, allows us to look at that from a few different directions and explore it. So you could say that we're going beyond the seat, because in the sutra the word asana is used to represent any form that we want to put our practice into. It could be the seat like this, like I said before. There's a variety. In particular, I think Lakshman Ju particularly uses the Yoga Sutras as an example, because the Yoga Sutras have the 8 limbs of yoga. In this text, he refers to them as Yogadarśana, the vantage point of the yogi, kind of. And the 8 limbs of yoga, as you may or may not know, start with like non-harming, non-greed within a community, then cleanliness and divine conduct within yourself, the Yamas and the Niyamas. And then from there we climb up to doing asana, like yogic posture, like physical practice, and then pranayama. And then from pranayama we can reach up to concentration practices, pratyhara, and from there dhyana, meditation practices. And so, but we see all of this, though essential to our work, isn't exactly the end, right? So let's take a look at a quote that comes up in the sutra. Hey Jema, would you mind reading this quote, if it's sort of legible from your screen you're on? Go for it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Cool.
Actually, the postures, asanas, explained in the Yogadarśana are not really asanas at all. Shiva Yoga is the only posture that must be understood when we are seeking to understand the real posture of such a yogi. This real posture is a supreme energy of awareness. You are seated in that posture when you hold and possess the supreme energy of awareness. Then in each and every act of your life, you are aware. You are seated in that posture. This is the real asana.
Thanks, Jema. So take your time with that, everyone. So this isn't really like saying like physical yoga is not yoga. I mean, it is, but it's saying all of the practices that are grouped into the 8 limbs of yoga, all of them are somehow not quite the real thing that we're seeking, even though of course they do help us attain that. What is the real posture? What is the real practice? You know, and so does anyone want to summarize that? I mean, if this is the first time you're seeing this text, I can see, oh, that would be hard to summarize, but how do you feel like, what is he saying is the real posture in your words? Go for it, Anju.
For me, when I was reading this, what comes up is like within our practice, how we're always trying to find that seat and expansion in the heart. And that's what we're always working towards in absolutely everything we do in our day, whether it's brushing our teeth or sitting on our cushion, that, you know, this practice we do for 30 minutes in the morning and at night, but it's something that's with us throughout our entire day. And it's that spark of awareness and keeping that energy inside and that recognition that is the real act of doing yoga.
Thanks, Andre. I really appreciate your perspective on that. Actually helped me see it. So it's not so much about saying these 8 limbs aren't the real yoga, but it's more like saying there's so many ways that we can use our life for growth. There's so many opportunities for awareness. There's so many, it's just like, don't limit it to these, like really see like that this awareness that permeates, did you say brushing your teeth, you know, to your meditation cushion, like this awareness is so much bigger and it really can't be pinned down to any certain quantity. So I think that really helped me out, actually sort of expand the vantage point. I don't want to rush anyone, but we can move on to another aspect of this if that feels good to you. If there's any comments or questions, by all means, raise your hand. Okay, Yogita, go for it.
Mute myself. I think it means that you're
Oh,
in your
A
heart.
little quiet.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I'm just turning it up all the way. Go for it.
Okay. You can hear me now? Okay. When you're in your heart, no matter what's going on all day long, you're seated in your heart, no matter what's going on around you. That's all.
Nice. Yeah, the heart itself being the real seat. Like that's where you're really sitting. You might be sitting in a chair, might be sitting on a bus. You might not be sitting at all, like walking around, but the seat of your awareness is in your heart. Thanks. And so when I was working with this sutra, and again, just raise your hand, or if I missed you, just unmute and speak up. When I was working with this sutra, the practical aspect of how do we do this and unlocking sort of that experience of this came from the next section that I want to highlight for us all. And the emphasis of the next section is on the term sukhaṁ. So we know the word sukhaṁ probably from, if you did a yoga teacher training, you came across this word when Patanjali described the physical postures of yoga as well as the seat of meditation. He says they should be practiced with effortless effort, stira and sukha, a balance of effort and effortlessness. And so this sutra particularly focuses on the word sukhaṁ because sukhaṁ was actually in the sutra itself. Āsanasthaḥ, sukhaṁ, hrade, nimajjati. So āsanasthaḥ, the asana, the seat, then sukhaṁ, effortless. And so this is where the sutra starts to sort of help us walk towards this experience. Hey, Jaganmati, it's good to see you. Do you want to read this one for us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Leaving aside the effort of asana, yogic exercises, pranayama, breathing exercises, dhyana, contemplation, and dharana, meditation, simply remains in that posture with nothing left to do, aware of what he actually is. This is why the author has used the word sukhaṁ in the sutra, because effortlessly means that without exerting any effort in respect to breathing or yogic exercise, contemplation, or meditation, they remain seated in that posture.
Great job reading that oddly abridged part of the quote. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Oh, sure. So we see the crux, for me, the crux in this point was the idea of leaving aside the effort. And then if you cut all the way to the end, while remaining seated in that posture, right? He doesn't say to reject the posture. It's not like we do nothing. We do a very particular something. We have the effort of asana, for example, your yoga class, or the effort of pranayama, or the effort of meditation. And we slowly but surely try to just loosen. We try to loosen our effort, leaving aside the effort, just placing it aside, right? Leaving aside, like just while remaining seated in the posture. So when you're trying a meditation practice and and your mind drifts, well, that wasn't you placing anything aside, right? That was you like just whoa being drawn out. But when you can stay centered and you're doing your mantra and you're able to say the next mantra with just like a little less external grip and a little more internal sensation, like that little shift that we might do with one mantra at a time is how we sort of leave aside the effort and while remaining seated in the quote posture. And so it's a very gradual process, but it's something that we do when we've been taught to do. I mean, the idea of starting your mantra at the mouth, making your way to the throat, making your way to the heart, this is you leaving aside the external effort of the mantra in order to sort of connect with the actual, like the more energetic power of the mantra. And if your mind drifts while you do it, well, you do it a little louder. Gita.
To me, these couple of sentences speak to what Babaji refers to as stewardship, where you get focused on the doing rather than the relaxing and just being in the posture. And whether that is a meditation or pranayama or that beyond all of that, beyond the void, it's really allowing yourself to be. Rather than do.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what you're hitting on with the be rather than do is from back to the idea that we are Shiva already, that we can connect to that being. We don't actually have to build it. It's there. And so just reminding ourselves, like trying to keep those scales balanced as we practice. Thank you for that. I see J Ma's hands up. Anything else you want to add before we move on? Gita, is that good? Cool.
Good.
Thanks. J Ma, go for it.
I was just gonna say that it feels very much like surrender to me when they're saying this, like yeah, you're gonna do the asana and you're gonna do the pranayama and contemplation and meditation, but you're not attached to that. Like if you can do those like in a complete state of surrender, then you're always seated in the heart, right? You're always in that state. Yeah, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just sort of sitting with what you said. Yeah, that definitely came up for me as well. Hint, hint, the next slide has the word surrender on it. And the idea of practicing with surrender, like doing a mantra with surrender, does that sort of feel like it's in the same direction as what you're talking about? Yeah. It's just, it's such a big term that I think we often place it on a pedestal. Like, oh, that experience is encapsulates like our whole practice. So I'll be able to do that when I'm like in the deepest meditative state. But this sutra is saying like, no, you gotta practice with surrender to experience surrender, and that you can do that. Like, and it starts by just trying to do your practice with a little bit less effort while maintaining your focus. It's always the caveat. Like that's a great way, according to how I'm interpreting the sutra, to walk the path of surrender. Yeah, Dharma.
Can you hear me okay?
It's quiet, but I can turn my end up. Go for it.
Okay, I have the headphones on, so. I have a question about the term real, and I'm reminded of, from a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing inauthentic, and I'm just like, to me, that term real resonates a little bit with that authenticity, but it's a translation, and I'm not sure if there's any connection there at all. So that's just a wondering I have.
Mm-hmm. Boy, yeah, that's an interesting parallel to bring up. And specifically, you're referencing the akrita, the unartificial effort that permeated like the last 3 sutras. And if we remember back from like Sutra 2.2, there was like Lakshmanju gave us a really cool definition of it when he said something to the effect of it should be absolutely natural yet filled with intense desire. And I think that's exactly what we're going for here, right? The intense desire is like this effort that we do have to bring to our practice, but then the absolutely natural. And I think the last part of that sentence was, and the effort should, this kind of effort also should come from the center of the heart, like Yogita was referencing, you know? And so that's exactly what we're going for. It's another way of understanding, like, if we can practice with intensity, yet effortlessness, and have it come from the heart, that's going to take us there. Like, it's, you know, that will take us there. If we only have the intensity, we'll just go in circles, right? And if we have no intensity whatsoever, then, well, you know, that's just not making it to the cushion. But yeah, I think you're right on. I think that's a great way to describe this, what we're talking about here in just a slightly different context. I see Kat's unmuted. All right, I think I hear it. Go for it.
Yeah. I was reading an article right before this, and one of the things that it said, it's about a different sutra, but one of the lines in it that I've been thinking about, which I think also applies here, is it's when we relax and trust that we are transformed.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing. Of like, because you're saying from the heart, and so like that is how you can have effortless effort, is when you trust, which goes back to what Dharma and Abhaya were talking about last week. That is what trust is, at least to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, like the relaxing part, I think everybody can get that, but then the trusting part is just that little bit of activity. Thanks, Kat. I saw another, I think Jaganmati, your hand went up. I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, like, through the years, like every time people come and ask Babaji their questions, I feel like I hear this a lot, like people who have been practicing for a while, and then they hit this like, oh, I need to like let go of all that effort. And Babaji is like, yay, relax, you know, and I feel like this comes up a lot when I listen to satsang, and, you know, just that backing away with a little more gentleness in the practice, right? Like releasing a little bit, but not letting go of the effort fully.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. I saw a lot of people nodding because I think either we've heard that, like you're saying, or we've literally been the one saying that and asking that. You're right. It's sort of like a stepping stone in our realization of how to practice. We have to eventually come across this in ourselves. That's a great point. Yeah. See, that's none of that. Yeah. Sorry, it was right behind the camera.
Hi, everyone. I was just thinking about the idea that Baba talks about, you know, how we take the vehicle to the place. but then we get
Okay.
out of the vehicle, like we don't need to stay in the vehicle. And it's just such an interesting line, you know, in a way, because I feel like um, it's like when I'm sitting, especially with Baba lately, since he's been back, I sit with him on Monday night. I do the circular breath. I'm putting that effort in. And then all of a sudden, I just have this kind of really strong vertical energy that just feels like it's just so pure and pulling me up. And then I just let go of all the effort. But I asked him about it last week, and he was like, "Yeah, keep pulling that back down." You know, it's like, oh, you know, so it's like there's that line, I guess, between kind of surrendering the effort and then, but also not letting it all go or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a balance that later in the sutra, it talks about how this concept is so personal that no one can ever quite even explain it to you, because it has to do with you on such a deep level that you can only understand it through the direct experience of it. And so it's sort of like this, how critical it is to have a teacher, you know, that you can work and then ask and then refine and then try and then ask again. And then, yeah. Yeah, there's like no way we can map it out. And I don't mean we, but you know, just the yogic tradition, like it can't be quite exactly mapped out. There's no way to communicate it to us from the outside. And that's where the sutra concludes by saying it's impossible. The only way you can understand this is by a direct experience of it. And you know, Rudy said his enlightenment was learning how to work. And that statement becomes clearer and clearer and clearer as we work with the sutras. Like learning how to work is literally, and from how I understand that statement from Rudy, was how he defined enlightenment. So it must be a pretty special understanding. Jema.
I also thought, and I'll be quick because I know we want to move on, but it made me think that a while ago I studied like the origin of asana, and I read that like in the beginning there were really only a handful of postures, and that they were depicted on stone walls. That's how they got the original postures, and most of them were seated postures. And it just makes me think that maybe there was more to that depiction than just the idea of a physical seated posture. Like maybe they were pointing to something else. And we just, you know, everyday people that practice yoga take it like, well, that's the physical part of it, without looking deeper into what did they mean by showing this depiction of someone seated. You know, maybe they were pointing to a different seat.
Cool. That's like sort of exciting, that concept. Like it's fun. Sit inside this way, sit inside this way, sit inside this way. It's fun. I'm going to click over to one more slide if everybody's into that. And the idea is that this experience that's indescribable is described as diving and sinking. And I added the word surrendering for the reasons I'll say in a moment. But in the sutra, it is said, the actual translation, I'll read it back. Seated in that real posture, the yogi effortlessly dives into the ocean of nectar. And then Lakshmanju goes on to immediately say, you know what? Let's go for it and read it. Meru, just saw you appear out of thin air. Do you want to read this one for us?
And without any effort, the yogi finally immerses themselves in the universe, in the ocean from which the universe rises and expands. They dive and enter for good in that ocean, which is filled with real nectar. What does diving mean? In diving in the ocean of nectar, they let the impressions of the body, of the breath, of the 8 constituents, and of the void sink into the ocean, and they become one with that nectar. This is the real way of diving.
So we see in the word dive sort of 2 concepts simultaneous. When you hear the word dive, you definitely think of like effort, like it's like it's like a shape, it's like a posture you would make, right? But then Lakshmanju goes on to sort of, work with that term a little bit, because diving was the one given by the sutra itself and interpreted by Shemaraja originally. And then Lakshmanju said, what does diving mean? And he says, they let the impressions of the body, breath, mind, basically is Purashtaka, and the void, they let those things, those impressions sink into that ocean, and they become one with the nectar. So it's, again, we see this, is it an efforting, like a dive, or is it like a sinking and releasing? Bob.
So if you think about an ice cube diving into water, if it dives in for long, its ice cubiness disappears. So if you're doing witnessing type of practice, as you sink into it, the parts of you that you define yourself with, your name, your body, your breath, everything is slowly like left up there, and what's left is just this awareness. And I've been trying to think about this over the last half a year, that sometimes when I'm doing a meditation or some kind of awareness type of meditation, I recognize that I'm there, but just barely. And that who I am or where I am seems to not be very clear to me at all until I come back to the surface and remember who I am down here on this level. So I feel like I told Shirley that there's times when I feel like I don't really even, what do I say?
Exist.
That I don't even exist. Yeah, it's like, I'm like, well, there was something going on and then I am back here, but it's really, really difficult to describe, but the more you do witness yourself or witness, watch your mind. And the more you sink in, the less of these outer trappings you even experience. It's all right, you win. I can't explain it. Anyway, just threw that in there because it felt like it could be said.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's a reflection on, an experience that you've obviously earned through direct practice, not even through hearing about it or reading about it, but an experience that can't be put into words because it is an experience. And that's always I'd rather have that than the right words any day. Yeah. But what I did hear in there also was this essence of like it feels like being immersed in something like the ice cube in the water. It's sort of this full immersion. It's a slow, almost you don't see it happening like the ice cube in the water. You just really can't see it. But if it's there long enough, it's going to happen. And so it's like an immersion, but it's also a diving, because as we all know, like it takes effort to melt away these layers. They don't just melt away because you're sitting there, they melt away because you're surrendering. So there's an effort, and then there's also a melting. So there's a diving and there's a sinking. And hopefully all of us can experience that directly and don't have to bother with the words, essentially, because it seems like you hit the impasse pretty quick with concepts like this.
Hey, Sacham, it's Tashi.
Hey, Tashi.
I didn't know if you would be able to see me if I waved my hand, so I just went for it.
Yeah, very barely, yeah.
Okay, so I just had the thought that this relates a lot to becoming what we focus on. So if you're practicing a lot and focusing on your awareness, or you're focusing on the self, or bliss, or consciousness, or letting go, it sort of brings you more and more into focus on your true nature. And then that way this sort of is kind of like a question. I don't totally get it, because you are that, right? But you're focusing on it and also becoming that. And by also, you can also think of contracted things and become that. Like I am saying I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad. And you like become sad. Or you're like, I am the self, I'm self. Or focusing on the heart and love and expanding, you become bigger. So that's sort of a question there.
I got you on the last half. That was pretty straightforward as far as, where attention goes, energy flows, and then, what you're going to focus on, sort of what you will become, even though you might not even, something that's interesting about it is like, as Lakshmanji was saying a few sutras ago, you can say I am Shiva, but it doesn't count for anything until you actually are Shiva. And like, we don't know when we're Shiva. I don't know, but we know when the mechanism's really working, or whether we're just on the surface, and so it's like the mechanism is what's sort of most important. And I feel like this sutra is really just saying like, either, you got to get in there somehow, but once you feel that mechanism moving, you can sort of not worry so much about the words on the surface, and you really can just turn the gears of your practice without having to have the right words for it, or even know what direction you're going. you can really actually feel the gears move and start to work with the gears directly, is sort of one way that I've been interpreting this. But so I don't know, that probably, I don't even know if that serves in any way your comment, but it's just sort of where the direction it took me.
Thanks. Yeah, that was definitely helpful. This reminds me, I was thinking of earlier, the like being seated but releasing all the effort. And it's just like that state of being. I forget who was talking about just be. And that's like, yeah. Yeah, for me that felt like just being empty. Like you're seated, like you're here in this posture, but then there's like everything dissolves. And what's really happening there? And I think that's, Bob, the way you explained that was really nice, because I can't explain it at all. It's
I
like it's
know.
there.
I think what this means is we are supposed to meditate. Like when you can no longer explain it, meditate. Hopefully before that point, but so if that's all right with everyone, let's meditate for, at least maybe the next 10 minutes, and we'll have a few minutes at the end. Just gonna pull up the original sutra. So once you've established your fake posture, we will dive into the real posture of awareness. And just take this first moment to, I want to play with the actual posture. Bring some effort to your actual posture, right? So you're going to sit up straight. If you're in a chair, ideally, your back's away from the backrest if that's possible. But in any case, so you're sitting up straight and you feel like that takes effort, right? But when you feel like you find vertical, when you find that balance point, start to loosen up a little. Start to leave aside the effort of your asana while remaining upright. And in this way, you can encounter the work of this sutra at the physical kosha, at the level of the physical body. Effortless effort, perseverance without tension. What does it feel like to sit upright, but loosening your grip on it at the same time? You might not even notice little gripping in the shoulders or in the low back. You might not even notice some gripping. So maybe loosen up a little extra while remaining upright. And we can begin with the breath on the same level. At first, we'll use effort. Make the inhale and exhale about the same length. Make them smooth. And notice the experience of using effort. It focuses the mind. It shapes your reality. But feel, is this the fullest experience of your breath right now? Like, is this what we mean by the breath, pranayama? Or does this feel more like the most limited experience of the breath? And just experiment for a few moments with what if you loosen your grip a little on the breath. Can you keep watching it? As thoughts arise and as you bite into them, bring yourself back to the breath with effort. Smooth out the breath with effort. And as you feel capable, try to remain in the posture of your breath, using less and less effort. The actual practice of using less effort could be said to be the actual practice of watching your breath. This is the real way of pranayama. Notice the experience of using less and less effort while remaining in the posture of the breath. We sink into that ocean and we become one with that nectar. This is the real way of diving. Namaste, everyone. Thanks for making this such a group experience. It's completely unique in that way, such a rare opportunity to be together at this level. Welcome, Sydney. It's your first time here. I didn't get to see you, but thanks for being here. And everyone else, good to see you, Tara. Have a great weekend. Absolute Independence Day. See y'all at Shoshone or online. Thanks, Shoshone. Good to see you, Jen. Thanks for coming. Bye, Anju.